Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about management and transitioning. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Fredrik, how can I transition from a developer role into more of a manager role? And the short answer is take ownership. That's what you need to do. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I'm glad you asked. The simple answer is pretty much that as a developer, your responsibility area is usually focused on the technical aspect of the product that you are working on. But as a manager, you need to be more than that. You basically need to prove to the surrounding people that you will take care of the daily administrative tasks that are happening within your company. Now, that doesn't mean that you are in charge of HR and you're hiring people and that you're in charge of doing things such as setting up the yearly company picnic or something like that. What it means is basically that you take a higher level of responsibility to make sure that work is planned, it's prepared for the other developers or the other people, and that you have a deep enough understanding of the company, how it works and the different stakeholders and so forth, to be able to figure out how to schedule different departments so that they can work together, or to give answers to questions that different people might have from you and your team. Now, the easiest way to do this is pretty much to just start off doing it that way. Like, you will start, usually when you start at a company, the only responsibility that you have is pretty much that you write code. So your product owner or your manager and so forth, they will come in and they will say, we need this and this and that, and they have already done all the prep work and so forth, so now you know what you're supposed to be doing, right? And then you just focus on delivering that thing, and if a bug comes in, you take care of the bugs. But that is your sphere of influence, right? Now, in order to transition into a manager, you need to step it up one level from that. So when you feel comfortable with the code base, I highly recommend you start suggesting that you help out, you basically help out with the preparation of the stories. You can do small things such as just schedule out, okay, we need to do these things here. I'll prepare some stories for my team so that they can go into the backlog so that that work is prepared. You can start up a dialogue with your current manager or whoever is in, just, kind of calling the shots in your company, and say that I have a few improvement suggestions here. Maybe if we start doing work in this fashion or in that fashion, we will actually be more productive and more effective. And before you know it, you will start getting to a point where you feel comfortable just saying that, you know what, this meeting here where we're going to talk about the upcoming work, I would really like to be involved in that meeting to just hear where we're going with this. And that's kind of how you very slowly start introducing this idea that you, as the developer, you're actually now not just involved in the coding, you're actually involved in the planning of work. And that is one of the, I will argue, simplest and most powerful ways for you to go from being a developer only to being a team lead or a tech lead of some sort. Because that is definitely the sort of work that most developers they're not involved in that, but it is something that pretty much every software team needs. You need somebody who has a foot on both sides of the fence. So you have one foot in the engineering part of things. You have a deep understanding of how the system works and how to deliver work, if that makes sense. And then you have one foot in the planning state where things are more administrative. Because the one thing that I can promise you that your most likely non-technical PO or manager and so forth struggles with is to figure out how much work something is, how long is it going to take, is it better to do this before that, and have they thought about all of these things here. And as an engineer, you know the answer to most of these questions. And if you then start actually offering to help out with estimating work and doing a bit of small planning and saying, oh yeah, that thing that you want to do, it's going to probably take this amount of time and you should probably think about doing this before that because these things might collide. So you just start helping whoever is over your manager with some simple scheduling tasks. And before you know it, that actually becomes, you very naturally become the go-to person for whoever is making requests to your team. And that is, you pretty much transitioned into a more management type of role, because the one thing that you can be sure of is that the person who has the answer to all of these questions, which usually is the person who has been in these meetings and know the upcoming work, is the person who people are going to go to first for answers to their questions. And that is definitely the strongest sign that you have become some type of manager type of figure. And after a while of doing this, just being involved in the planning of work, and also of course you're going to have to still code, you will see that as the company's needs grow, the dependency on you also grows, which means that you will very slowly get sucked out of a role where you maybe did 100% coding to a role where you might be doing 20% management, 80% coding, and that ratio, depending on how much of a dependency and how much of a knack for this you have, you're going to see that it might even pull you in where you do 20% coding and 80% administrative work, or going into sales meetings and so forth and so forth. So all you actually, as I said, have to do is to introduce this idea that you want to be involved at the planning stage. Because once you're in the planning stage, you actually have the ability to start to see how all this work is going to play out, and you have that benefit of being an engineer. You've built this so you can actually give insights. Like, there is a real value to have an engineer in the planning stage of work, because as I said, you actually know more than the PO, most likely. So you can give feedback on very important things such as how difficult is it and how long is it going to take, and should we do something, which order should we do this, and will this work, won't it work, and so forth and so forth. The technical perspective is a very powerful perspective. So what I want you to take away from this is that if you want to transition from being a developer to being more of a manager or a tech lead or something like that, the most natural way for you to do that is to express to your boss that you would like to be a little bit more involved in the planning stage, and then start doing small things such as prepare stories for your team, talk to your project owner or your product manager or whoever is giving requests to you, and just help them out with, okay, this is how long this is going to take. This is a good idea. You should probably think about doing this before that. Give them the technical perspective on the planning that they do, and very soon you will see that they start depending on you. Like they will see the enormous value that you can bring when you know, because you know the system. Don't try to do this as a junior who doesn't know this, because then you're not going to help, because you're just going to cause a lot of confusion and uncertainty, because you don't actually know how long things are going to take. You don't know how the system works, etc., etc. You need to be solid there first. But once you are solid, you will be able to accurately say that, oh, it's going to take this amount, it's going to be that hard, and so forth and so forth. And that is invaluable to someone who's trying to plan out work for the company. And before you know it, they're going to come to you for pretty much everything. Be careful here though, because you will see that they depend more and more on you. And it's kind of funny, because you might actually find yourself in a situation where you stop being a programmer and you become a manager. It's actually not that hard for a programmer to go and become a manager if they they take this approach. But be sure that this is what you want, because you might just all of a sudden find out that, shit, people depend on me so much for all of this other administrative work that I lost all my coding. That is something very real that could happen. So just know what you're doing. Have a great day.